Greetings, 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 family. This is Black Eyes TV once again, and we have a very, very special guest. As I always say, I go to my co-host. I'm going to put it in your hands and give us this info.
What's good, family? Yeah, back again, Black Eyes TV, bring you that information. Very happy today to have the elder with us, my friend. Yeah, I love speaking with him, always raises my mood. So I'm glad that he was able to join us because he's got a busy schedule, always on the move, always teaching. So without further ado, let's introduce the brother. Brother, introduce yourself to the family, let them know who you are, what you do, and then we'll begin the conversation.
You know one thing though, we were supposed to ask our elder for permission to even talk, so we forgot. But
indeed, can we begin, elder? That's it.
It's all there, family. You have my permission. I appreciate you for this opportunity. I just thank you. My name is Kaba Kamene. I'm an educator, particularly educator of our children here in the United States, specifically New York, and most specifically Bronx, New York. I spent 31 years teaching our children. And my great fortune was being introduced to this information from a very young age, not just from my family, because I was born Booker T. Coleman. So there were always references to Booker T. Washington, the educator of Tuskegee Institute. So I was always aware of culture, not to mention that I was introduced to Professor Clark, John Henry Clark, at a very young age. I was about 12 and a half. And so culture has always been a part of my life. And one of the things that I brought to the educational process was a deliberate desire to teach culture to children and realizing the impact that it had on me. And it's not that it is ever too late. It is never too late. If you're walking and breathing, it's good time. But when you get to our children at a certain age and you empower them with their beingness, it changes the entire dynamic of their life system, because much of what I started hearing as I got older, I knew it was nonsense. I didn't buy into it. And the reason why was because long before anybody started throwing all of these types of propaganda of concepts of another culture being greater than mine for the nature of their skin color or their hair texture or whatever it was, I knew from practical example that just wasn't true. And I wanted to get to our young people very young. So my first license was in early childhood. I was a kindergarten teacher. I used to get the 4- and 5-year-old babies in my class, and I used to drop some knowledge on them. Now on Facebook, social media allows many of them to be able to contact me. And there have been quite a few that have told me the impact that I've had on them through their life. Because of what we talked about when they were 4, 5, 6 years old. I taught first grade, second grade. But because of my other work, I was also a teacher in middle school. For us would be like let's go by ages, because I know your system may be different there in UK. But, when you're dealing with early childhood, you're dealing with 4-year-olds to about, let's say, 7 or 8. Then you have elementary, which goes like from 7, 8 to give or take about 12, 13, or I should say 8 or 9. And then you have the middle school, which basically for us is considered to be 6th grade. And you always add 5 to whatever grade it is. So it's like about 11 years of age to about 12, 13. High school for us, of course, would be 12, 13 to about 17, 18. And I've taught college. So I've taught every grade. I've taught every subject. I have been a teacher. I have been an administrator. I've been an assistant principal. I come to you with this information only to let you know my background, to get a sense of I'm like the spook who sat by the classroom door. I've watched how the system works. And what I wanted to do was to bring to our children and to our community. And so when Brother Richie and Brother Mr. Riggs tells you that I'm busy, I'm not going out, but I'm busy about doing things like this, talking to the community, doing interviews, writing books, doing curriculum. And so about 5 years ago, I was, well, I've always been into spirituality. I've always been basically a spiritual person. I grew up Roman Catholic here in New York City. I was choir boy, altar boy, wanted to be a priest. And so I've always been on a quest to ask basic questions about why am I here? You know, who brought me here? And what am I supposed to do now that I'm here? And so it was a quest that I was always on. I collected materials over the years. I've studied books. I've done comparative religion courses. I've taught comparative religion courses. And I just wanted to figure out this story. And so about 4 years ago, maybe 5 now, this was 2014, 2013, I decided that this story that I was about to write was not for me. It was for all of us. And I wanted to find out, what is religion, you know, and what is spirituality? What is the difference? What is the difference between a spirit and a soul? What is ritual? What's the purpose of ritual? These were questions in my head. And so I began to write a book. And I titled the book Spirituality Before Religions. I wanted to go deep, you know, not a couple thousand years ago. I wanted to go very deep into this process. Exactly what is this all about? And I came to realize through what I subtitled my book. The title of the book is Spirituality Before Religions, but I subtitled it Spirituality is Unseen Science. Science is Seen Spirituality. Because in my study and in my journey to figure this out, I came to realize that you cannot separate spirituality from science. Science and spirituality is like one side is leather, one side is suede. Spirituality and science is like the head of a coin and the tail of a coin. You can't separate them. They're one and the same. They're just two sides of the same. And so in this book, I explore and I go back into the deepest parts of consciousness, of where the entire thought process of spirituality came from. And what I found the answer to be is the Twa people, the original people, the hunters and gatherers who became agriculturalists, saw the resurrection in botany. And that's where it came from. The idea of planting the seed growing, the seed aging, dying, decaying, and then resurrecting itself. That's where the concept came from. It came from nature. And they said, well, botanically, that's what's going on. We plant the seed. The man plants the seed in the woman's body. The egg becomes fertile. The fetus grows, is born, grows in age and time, ages, dies, and the concept of resurrection of the spirit of that human back into the ether, back into the cosmos occurred. It was on nature. And so from that point, we develop an understanding of spirituality and we examine the text of ancient Kemet. Spirituality before religions came at a time that I think is very appropriate, because when you go to the last chapter, there's a piece in I wrote the book for the last chapter, and the last chapter is the return of the Black Cosmic Mother. And as you can see all around us, from this side of the pond to your side of the pond, there is a return. Somebody's coming back, but they're going to clean the earth before they come. You know how you got to clean the house before mama come? Mother Earth is cleaning her home so that when her mother, the Queen Mother, the Black Cosmic Mother comes, everything will be all right.
Okay, that's all. Beautiful intro. For those that don't know, again, the title of the show today is Spirituality Before Religion, which is also the title of our brother's new book. So again, that's where we're talking around that concept. That's why the elder began by laying that out for you. And as he said, it's a real poignant time for these conversations to be happening. People are always talking about the age of Aquarius and knowing and stuff like that. How when you have conversations with people who are into those aspects of cosmology and so on, how do you talk to them in relation to the same subject of spirituality before religion? Because again, a lot of religion today is, again, cosmology wrapped up in different stories and other mythos and stuff. So how do you reconcile that with people?
Well, my brother Richard, the main point for me when I'm talking to folk, from my perspective, I wrote the book for our people. I didn't write it for academia. I didn't write it expecting awards. I didn't write it for any other reason but to convey a message that I had come to, my own personal Kaba thought, as it relates to us as a people and where we are. And the purpose of the book is just to lay out in the best way possible. I do not insult any religions. I have a respect for religions. Here's how I tell the story. When we, as African people, were stolen from our homeland, brought to this part of the world, treated the way we were treated, from the moment we came in contact with Urugu, the incomplete one, from the moment we came in contact with them, there has been an adversarial, very angry, hate-filled relationship. And when we were brought to this part of the world and we were treated that way, you can only imagine what must have been going on in our ancestors' heads as they worked on the plantations, as they were treated, as their families were broken up. People talk about a pandemic. We've been living with a pandemic for over 400 years. We know what this virus has done. We know what this virus is. Those that know the history understand the virus. White supremacy, due to white fragility. We have lived with a virus for 400 years. How did we inoculate ourselves from this virus when we were on the plantation with nowhere near the types of rights that we have now? We are still being challenged, but we certainly are far better off now than we were back then in many different cases. So we were introduced to this story. And wow, what a story this was. This man was born. We knew he was black. Black folk on the plantation knew he was black. Just the fact that they wouldn't let him in the hotel, motel, or Holiday Inn. He had to go back and be born with the sheep and the cattle. There was no room in the inn. So he was repudiated from, even before he was born, coming into the world, he was repudiated. And then the story goes, he was hunted by Herod. And so the idea of the story that you're dealing with is the fact that, wow, what a story this was. For us as a people, it sort of kind of mirrored our lives on the plantation. And with everything that he did, in all the stories of Jesus Christ, you had never heard them say he was going home. This brother was homeless. If you wanted to look for Jesus Christ today, I would probably go under a bridge. He'd probably be living under the bridge. He didn't have a home. Sometimes the brother walked the earth with one sandal, according to their stories now, because he couldn't afford another sandal. Okay, and so our people saw this story and said, that's like me. And so in becoming attracted to the story on the plantation, it was their life stream. It was their ability to survive what they were going through. Dr. Amos Wilson tells us all great organizations solve their people's problems and meet their people's needs. At that time, for us on the plantation, going through our pain, whether it be in the United States, whether it be in Jamaica, whether it be in Trinidad, whether it be in Puerto Rico, whether it be in the Dominican Republic, Antigua, wherever it was, Africans were going through things. And this religion gave them hope for tomorrow. And so in certain ways, I really appreciate what Christianity did for us on the plantation. Because if it weren't for that hope, some of us wouldn't be here. And so my purpose of writing Spirituality Before Religions was not to put any religions down. But let me finish my story with you as it relates here. There's a brother, Jeremiah Kamara, brilliant scholar. I heard him once say, he was quoting a proverb. And he said, when a spiritual system no longer meets your needs and solves your problem, when you still believe in that system, even though it does not meet your needs and solves your problems, it's like carrying the boat on your back after you cross the river. And the idea is that the boat was very important to getting you across the water from one side to the other. It was very important. In fact, if it wasn't for the boat, you wouldn't have gotten across. But if after you get back on land on the other side where you were trying to go, you still carry that boat on your back, that boat becomes a burden. And so it becomes important to understand this story that's been told to us came out of Africa. And so what spirituality does is that in the later chapter, I do an analysis and what I do is I go deep inside of those texts, from the Memphite text and the pyramid text of the Old Kingdom to the coffin text of the Middle Kingdom to the Book of the Coming Forth Today by Night, including the judgment scene and the 12 hours of the Amduat, which is the underworld, the judgment time for your soul. I go into the Aten text of the 18th dynasty, and then I go into the Shabaka stone, which is a rewritten version of the Memphite text. So in a sense, and in my analysis, I take you in a circle where you end is where you began, which is the origin of the Muslim, Rosicrucian, Buddhist, Confucius. The one thing that I will tell you is that when you read what I analyze in those chapters on those different texts, you'll find your scripture on the walls or on the papyri or the coffins of Africa. And one of the highlighting points that I try to get across, family, it's such a beautiful, wonderful, liberating story that unfortunately has been so contaminated by white supremacy and even by Asian supremacy, because Buddha didn't look like that. The original Buddha was not a short, squat man sitting down smiling, bald head. That was not. Head. I think that that's what Buddha looked like. Everybody outside of us did the same thing to us. They tried to erase our origins and put their existence in there because they weren't beginning. They weren't there up until they haven't, the latest they can go back, and I'm speaking about Indo-Europeans, European Asians, Cro-Magnon, whatever you want to call them, however you describe people of European and Asian descent, with due respect to everybody. I don't speak in absolutes. They are Europeans as we know them today. They are no older than about 10,000 years old. We've been around for millions of years. Europeans didn't exist until about 10,000. I'm being nice to them by giving them 10,000 years. Asians came out later than that, and they didn't exist until about 5 or 6,000 years ago. Read the book by Sheikh Anta Diop, Civilizational Barbarism. Read some of the books by Gerald Cross. The books are there, and that's what I get into in the book. The books are there. The information is there. And if you put it all together, you can come to understand who you are as a people and what you have to do. And another thing you can understand is that there's no difference between us as a people. Fundamentally, as a student of John Henry Clark, I am a Pan-Africanist. Wherever Africans are, Africa is. And wherever Africa is, I'm home. Be it in the Caribbean, whether it be in UK, whether it be in Holland, whether it be in Germany or France, or whether it be on the continent herself, whether it be in Los Angeles or Chicago or Detroit here in the United States, South and Central America. There is only one race, and that's the human race. And that human race is African. Humans were born to be black, like plants were born to be green. It's just simple. And nobody's prejudiced against albino plants, but albino plants were not born to be albino. They were born to be green. And with the absence of chlorophyll, they became albino. That's science. That's not personal.
That's so. That's so. That's so. Listen, already I'm loving it. I gotta just say, you know, hit the like button, show love. The brothers taking time out to talk to us and dropping jewels already. One thing, you know, when we use words like spirituality, because of the way modern day religion is, it's changed the very concept of it. Where, as you're saying, we're talking about science, we're talking about nature, but with the modern day context of spirituality, we tend to think airy fairy or think of just the unseen. Speak to how the African always linked the unseen to the seen, because I think that's, you know, it's very important how, again, we learnt about our environment. And I know you speak a lot about that in relation to spirituality and how we express it.
It is very difficult to separate the two. We see it even today in the world we're living in, even in the religions that we practice, even the religions that are African-based, be it through the Spanish language, Santeria, the French language, Voodoo, the Portuguese language, Candomblé, English-speaking Caribbean, Obia. Even here in the United States, the African American Baptist Church, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, when you look at the way of the relationship between the pastor and the congregation, that is an African setting, the call and response. That is why when you look at every faith system that Black folk have gotten into, even if you get into Black folk into Buddhism, Black folk into Islam, Black folk into Judaism, or if you want to call it Hebrew Israelite, Black folk are into Christianity, it's different than the way in which their Eurasian counterparts celebrate it. There is a flavor, there is a dance, there is a way in which we operate that brings in and lets out that spirit that we have within us. And because we're speaking English, we use words like espiritu or whatever, and religions, and I understand that. But Africans did things without explanation. You know how you've heard people say, I love you so much, words could never explain, or I'm so mad I could spit. There are emotions that cannot be expressed in words. They can only be expressed in deeds. And so what becomes important as we begin to develop understanding these words is that we have to Africanize everything that we're experiencing. And so that becomes very important, that we understand how we look at things and how we develop what it is that's going on around us. Spirituality is a way of life. You can only show spirituality. You can talk about it, but you can only show it. It's a way in which you live. It's the way in which you function. And African folk have from the very beginning, but you got to go back to our beginnings. You have to go back to the Twa people of Central Africa, many of them living in what's called the Ituri forest, the original human beings, the short-statured people derogatorily called pygmies. They were the first hunters and gatherers that came out of the human movement or human evolution. They were the ones that put everything in its place, the hunters and gatherers. But in hunting and gathering, there was a need to be able to expand your caloric or your food intake. So then they did fishing, and then they also did agriculture. And out of this agriculture, they began to see how nature worked. And that goes back to what I said earlier about them observing the idea of a plant in the earth going through its different phases and then coming back next season as if it resurrected itself. And so as we're looking at this story, we come to realize that spirituality is something that you live. In other words, you know, Professor Clark used to always say, Africans didn't say, I am my brother's keeper. They just kept him. And I often, you know, veggie backing off of that, I say, you know, that I never tell my brothers and sisters, I got your back. I just got your back. There are things you don't have to say. There's things that you do that you never have to get credit for. But if you can cover somebody and help them out, that's the key. You know, I once saw a proverb that said a man or woman can achieve anything in life as long as they don't care who gets the credit. And that becomes very important in moving our civilization forward. And that is what African philosophy is based on. And also, I want to stress the fact that, you know, when we talk about Africans being the first people on the planet, let's take that a step further. African people are the only people on the planet. There is nobody else on the planet. Everything came out of us. Everyone came out of us. No matter who you are, where you are on the planet, you came out of an African dynamic system. Your environment just happened to maybe beat you up when you were in the ice, scared you so much, turned you depigmented, took away your complexion, calcified your pineal gland, so you lost a sense of spirituality and human movement and compassion, morality. I'm not speaking in absolutes, but I don't have time to be looking for no good white people. I'm sorry, I just don't have that time. I know they're there, but I ain't got time to look for you. I'm too busy trying to do for our people what has to be done. I recognize that you're there. Plus, if you are the type of person that I think you are, you know your place is not with us. Malcolm told you, your place is with your people. Try to get them people in shape, because them people are the ones that the problem, not us. We don't need people. We allowed to do our own thing, taking those who care deeply for us, we could solve our problems. Like I said before, black folk really don't have a problem. White folk have a problem. Black folk problem is the fact that white folk have a problem. We could get this together if we were left alone and allowed to flourish on our own. Stay out of our way. As James Brown said, I don't want no one give me nothing, just open up the door. I'll get it myself. Black folk have been willing to go for what they want on their own. But folk got to get their foot up off our back. And that's what the challenge is that we're looking at. I don't speak in absolutes, and I say that frequently because that's very important to say, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm blanketly talking about somebody. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad once told us that there's 1,000 wolves outside your door. 100 of them would put their life on the line to protect you. 100 of them would do whatever was necessary to ensure that you could get out of your house safely and go where you have to go. 100 of them, which means 900 of them are ready to eat you alive. The challenge is you don't know where those 100 are in that pack of 1,000. The question is, are you ready to go outside? Not me, because I wouldn't have time to look for those 100. I know they're there. And if they really care, they know what they got to do to the other 900. That's how I have to look at this. Dr. Edward Scobie, brilliant scholar from Dominica, spent a lot of time in UK. He used to always say, don't tell me nothing about good white people, because good white people act as shields for bad ones. And I've often thought about that as we are thinking on this process. And so it becomes important, family, that as I express myself to people, that I can and I swear I'm quoting from their Bible or from their Quran. sources came out of Ethiopia. The Quran is the book that was written in the mountains of Ethiopia and then brought into Saudi Arabia by Africans that established Islam. That's why you have Bilal being so important, because Bilal really is the one that brought Islam. After he went into it, he didn't go into Ethiopia from Saudi Arabia. He was already from Ethiopia, and he went back and forth, because remember, at this time geographically, if you look at Saudi Arabia, particularly Yemen, and if you look at the east of Africa, the Horn, you could walk from Africa to Saudi Arabia when in the Red Sea. There was a direct relationship between the west coast of Saudi Arabia and the east coast of Africa. In fact, they had the combined kingdom of Saba, which was on the west coast of Saudi Arabia and the east coast of Africa. Saudi Arabia is part of the African continent. You can't separate it, although we do today, but you can't separate it. It's one and the same, and it was African based, and that's where Islam came from. And you know, my attempt is simply to present to our people a story. In fact, if you just believe me, I haven't done my job. I want to create questions in your mind that makes you think. You don't have to believe me. And I'll tell you something else. There will be scholars, younger scholars, maybe some yet to be born, that will come upon our work, as I came upon the work of Martin Delaney, as I came upon the work of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. I came upon the work of people that came before me that I never knew. But I continued their work. And I respected the eldership work. And I took what they had done and took it to the next level. They did not have the Sheikh Anta Diops and the John Henry Clarks and all the scholars that I was able to, Dr. Yosef Ben Yikinen and Shashi McIntyre. They did not have those scholars, but they did the best they could with what they had. Now in my hands, I have their work. I'm doing the best that I can do in my time. Younger generations are going. It should work. It should work that we dedicate ourselves generation to the next generation, taking our work to the next level, because they will have access to work that I don't have. There are phenomenal scholars out here doing phenomenal work. Runoko Rashidi, Anthony Browder. I started listing names. Maybe I had done that because there's a whole bunch of folk out here doing some great work. I study under them. I study their work.
Definitely.
They are great scholars. You have scholars there in UK doing phenomenal work. Robin Walker. I mean, I have 2 copies of his book. I got one soft cover and one hardcover in case something happened to it. Because when scholars like that come along, I got to get more than one copy, because, you know, after a while, that book is going to be $20,000 when you try to buy it online. Because they try to keep that information out of our hands. So I know that book is going to be $20,000 in about 2 years. Yes, man. All of Dr. Ivan Van Sertima's work and the library of John G. Jackson, Sheikh Anta Diop. We have some scholars out here. Dr. Yosef Ben Yikinen's work. I mean, we got scholars out here, family, that are doing phenomenal work. And my work is to take the next level. It's not to stop with this. But this book is going to have you ask some questions. You're going to start to see some things as it relates to what Africa contributed to the concept of the unseen world. And it's in the scripture. It's in the utterances on the walls of Africa and on the papyrus. The story of resurrection, the whole story of the Christos myth. The passion of Christ is the passion of Osiris. If you understand the Osirian drama, which I go deep inside the book for, I talk about the Osirian drama from a language that I believe that our community can understand. It's a story. I tried to break it down. See, and my advantage, family, is because I was with children for so long, I attempt to break things down so that I can talk to somebody that's 4 or 5 years old and tell a story, and kind of words that they can understand the story. And because I've told so many stories throughout my life to children, I took this story, the Asarian drama, and I told a story about it. And I explained it in a way that you could sit around and tell children this story and they would understand what it is that you're saying. I wasn't trying to make it deep. I stayed very focused on my research. For those that have the book, you heavily documented, because I knew that once I started this, people was going to ask me certain questions. And I knew that I had to have my endnotes in place. I knew that I had to have my bibliography in place. Nowhere in the book do I, except at the end when I give you my book list on religions. And that'll blow your mind alone, just that book list alone, because I'll show you where the real Moses really was, Thet-Beti, or the Pharaoh Akhenaten of the 18th dynasty. That's who it is. Solomon and Sheba are his parents, Amenhotep III and Queen Ty. And Jesus the Christ was modeled on King Tut. That's how deep it gets. They have taken our historical peoples and events and places and placed a European mythos over our history. And then they're going to make it literal. That's how they're able to make it literal, because they're actually taking people who actually lived but did not do the things that they claim that these individuals did, but were related to that time, that created an ability to create an organization around that. I can show you Genesis in the Shabaka stone. I can show you the story of Cain and Abel in the Shabaka stone. I can show you Adam and Eve. I can show you Noah. And it's all written in Africa by Africans for Africans.
Yeah, I'm definitely hearing you. I think one thing I want to say is, whenever you're talking about religion, spirituality, whatever, again, in this modern day setting, a lot of people tend to, because they've realized that there has been a conspiracy to change facts, a lot of people, as they say, throw the baby out with the bathwater. And they say, spirituality as well as religion is outdated, or it can't help in today's society. And again, right now we find ourselves in the middle of this pandemic, COVID-19. Everywhere is in uproar. People don't know what to do. People have no money. How, again, does this concept that you have studied personally for you, first of all, as well as what you can impart to the people on a wider level, but how does it help in this modern day setting?
The last chapter of the book, as I told you, is titled The Return of the Black Cosmic Mother. We are moving into a different age. This age is a feminine energy age. It is an age that astronomically, people call Aquarius. We, calendrically speaking, there is something known as the Great Year. See, Africans had a lot of calendars. That's the first thing. They had a 7-day calendar, and they had a 10-day calendar. They had a 10-day calendar of 3 months, of 3 weeks per month. They had a sidereal calendar. They had a calendar of 1,460 years. They had a leap year calendar, where, like we do leap year every 4 years, we add a day. They added a year. That's where the word leap year came from. Originally, they used to add a year after 1,460 years. They then could add a year that would catch up with all the 365.25. Okay. But they also had a year that was called the Great Year, which was 26,000 years. 25,920 to be exact, but they always had that 80-year play. So it was considered a great year. It was 26,000 years in duration. This is how you know how old African folk are, because you just don't pop up with that 26,000. You have to go through that cycle, that 26,000 year cycle a couple times before you can figure out something is uniform here, you know? And so in this 26,000 year, you have 12 houses, and every house is 2,160 years in length, give or take. And that, I believe my math works out to about 25,000. But the idea is we are leaving the age of Pisces, which is the age of the fish, which really is more as it relates to Pisces being fish. This is the beginning of the year. And Pisces, and it's called the Processional of the Equinoxes, which means that, like what we do is that since January, give or take, we've gone from Aquarius to Pisces to Aries, okay? But the way the precession goes, it goes the other way. It goes from Aries to Pisces to Aquarius. And 2,160 years ago, give or take, we moved out of the age of the ram, which was the Amen priesthood. We moved out of that into the age of Pisces, which is the age of the fish. And this is why you see Christians in particular with fish representing Jesus the Christ. That's really an astronomical constellation that is the age of the fish. Now here in 2020, 2021, we are on the cusp of moving from the age of Pisces, which male, see, a ram is a male sheep. A ewe, E-W-E, is the female sheep, and the lamb is the baby sheep. We're moving out of the ram into the feminine energy of Aquarius. And I say this in response to your question. You have to be aware of what's happening. Bob Marley got a song, and I encourage y'all, when you get the opportunity, listen to what Bob Marley is saying in Natural Mystic. Saying there's a natural mystic in the air. If you listen carefully, you'll hear. Could be the first trumpet, might as well be the last. Many more will have to suffer. Many more will have to die. Don't ask me why, because there's a natural mystic in the air. What we're experiencing right now in this pandemic is probably from a spiritual perspective. I'm speaking from a spiritual perspective, just what I feel when I look at this and what has happened in the world. I have watched for the past, or I've studied for the past 500 years, there's come upon the earth a very violent, mean-spirited, anti-God-like person that has caused great pain, not just to other human beings, but to the Creator's creations, to the animals, to the tree. Burned down the Amazon. The Amazon is like the lungs of the earth with all of the greenery, all of the beauty, cutting down in order to make way for some type of artificial wealth. You cut down the lungs, the breathing capacity in the Amazon jungle, Amazon forest. You poison the water. You poison the air. You poison the land. I'm speaking from a spiritual perspective now. Mama Nature said, no, child. We can't go on like this because my mother's coming back, which is the cosmic reality. See, there was a cosmic reality before. There's always been cosmic realities, be they meteors, asteroids, events that have just come from the cosmos. But when the Black cosmic mother returned, nurturer and sustainer. She was the womb from whence everything came. The Black Cosmic Mother. And she's coming back. And I'm not trying to sound ethereal or like I'm pulling in something from outside. I'm just telling you that that we cannot explain, that they're just there. They're happening. But Earth can't come to this house all acting like this. You know, think about when we as kids are acting up in the house and your mom is there. She's saying, look, my mother's coming. I'm trying to get the house cleaned up for her. You all better start acting because you're the one dirtying this house and you're fighting amongst each other, throwing each other up against the wall. You're breaking things and all the rest of that. Y'all need to sit down and get yourself together. But you know, the children ain't going to listen. Mama say, don't make me get up out this chair now because I'm going, you know, I'm going to have to fix you. You know, mama don't play. So just do what you got to do. And the children keep playing and keep messing around there. And then mama get up. Mama get up and put everybody in their room. And that's what's happening. Not a bomb dropped, not a shot fired. And the whole world is in their homes. Even the Atlanta housewives are at home. Everybody's at home. Nobody's outside because Mother Nature has had just about enough of us. And keep this in mind. There was a time that there were no humans on this planet and the earth was doing fine. Mother Nature said, I brought you in and I can take you out. The earth doesn't need us. They can do good with the good ones of us, but they don't need us. For billions of years, the earth did fine without us. And so this is a warning. Mother Nature is telling us, listen, get yourselves together. Stop this nonsense. I didn't bring you in for you to act like this. Don't shame me. And so this is how I see this from a different perspective as a person viewing it. Now, what I just told you was a very spiritual story to me, but it was another story that I could have told children that I could have been sitting on the floor talking to 4 and 5-year-olds and they would understand exactly what I'm saying. But what I am saying is the higher order thinking skills of spirituality, to be able to read the messages, to understand the natural mystic that's in the air. That's what Bob Marley was talking about, the natural mystic. It's there. You can hear it. If you listen carefully, you will hear. But if you don't, then you're going to run out. You don't want to, I'm going to the beach. I'm going to the party. I'm going to the bar. Ain't nothing going to stop me. And then all of a sudden you catch this COVID and your lungs turn to stone. Because what I'm hearing about COVID, that don't play. That takes you out in a matter of hours. If you catch it and your body is the type to receive it that way, you're out. And it doesn't make a difference. You could be a muscle man, a muscle woman. You could be a health, eating healthy foods and all the rest of that. But if your body is capable of catching it, then you're in trouble because it'll come down on you. There are other people who eat pork, eat all sorts of nonsense, and they don't get it. This is a very particular virus. And the way it's manifesting itself in different people, different ways, whether they be children or people of African descent, you know, people of European descent. Wait till you see what this is going to do to some folk. This is something serious. And if we don't listen carefully, we will not hear. Many more will have to suffer and many more will have to die. Don't ask me why. It's just the natural mystic in the air.
Facts, brother. I totally hear you on that one. I mean, you was talking about, sorry, Riggs, was you going to say something?
No, I was just saying true Bob Marley words. Loving it.
Oh, yeah.
You hear me? Better.
Bob,
I was going to say, I mean, go on, say what you're saying, Elder.
No, brother, I'll follow what you're going to say.
I was just going to say, I know you was just talking about children and relaying these stories and information on that kind of level of understanding. But one thing that we do always focus on over here is children and black family and the importance of it. And obviously, you know, as black people, we always talk about black excellence in the form of things we've done. But again, we kind of sometimes forget about the very foundation in which black excellence comes from. So again, you know, in relation again to the title of the show and what we've already been talking about, how important is the black family as the foundation? You know, speak to that and how you feel on that.
My perception is a nation is only as strong as its weakest family. Family, it was the cornerstone to the Twa civilization. When I say Twa Mbuti, I'm talking about the San, the Kung, the Moesha, however you want to call them, the short-statured people that we know of derogatorily being called the Pygmies. Of the nation. It always has been, and it always will be. We speak in terms of we want to build a nation. I want to build an empire. I want to build dynasties. Empires are built by people. Dynasties are built by families. Dynasties are able to continue on throughout their entire existence, handing down within the family. Empires and dynasties are not built on baby daddies or baby mamas. Although I respect those that bring children to the world and do the very best that they can, if we don't have commitment to our family, then we don't have commitment to the nation. And that's a hard reality that we're all going to have to face eventually. One of the things that has so torn asunder our people is the fact that the first thing they did was disrupt our family lineage. That's what they did on purpose. They took us and sold us in various parts of this hemisphere in order to break up the solidarity of what would happen if a family was in place. Fathers were meant not to take control over their family, because if they did, he'd either be killed or he'd be sold. Because if the father had that type of power, then it would negate the power of the European landowner. So the only person that was allowed to have power was the European male. And he did it by breaking up the family. So whatever they do to tear you apart, where you have to start with when you want to build yourself up, and that family.
No, definitely.
Oh, wait a minute.
Facts.
Renegade Ralph, you're saying that song, Natural Mystic, was Phil Collins? I don't think so. Check it out.
No, definitely not.
On my iPod.
Definitely
not.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, yeah, man, I appreciate some of Phil Collins' work, but he did not do Natural Mystic. I got that, man. I got that on my iPod. I listen to that every day. Bob Marley was like a prophet. I remember when I was first introduced to Bob Marley, I was writing for a magazine, and they asked me to do this review in music, and the brother held up this album, Natty Dread. I had never seen or heard Bob Marley. This is 1975. 1975. He held up that, and when I saw those dreadlocks, I had seen those dreadlocks in Ethiopia. I had seen them in Ghana, but I had never seen them like in contemporary music from someone within this hemisphere. And I went and I played that album. And my goodness gracious, I thought he was somewhere between Gil Scott-Heron and Malcolm X. I've seen, in fact, the best concert I have ever gone to in my life was when Bob Marley opened for the Isley Brothers in Washington, D.C. That
When was
was an
that?
experience. This would have been in the spring of 1978, because I was in Washington, D.C. in 78. And I heard the Isley Brothers were there. This was after I had heard of Bob Marley. I'd had all his albums. I think Kaya was out by then. I had all of his albums by then, and I was just listening to this brother's music. And when I heard that he was opening up for the Isley Brothers, now check this out. Now here's the setup. I had a lot of respect for the Isley Brothers, because you don't let someone like Bob Marley open up for you. Because when Bob Marley got finished at his concert, if the Isley Brothers weren't on point, people would be ready to leave. See, your opening act has to be good, but it can't be better than you. So I had a lot of respect for the Isley Brothers, letting Bob Marley open for him, because Bob Marley could have been the headliner himself. But Bob Marley, at the end of the concert, I remembered he walked, Bob Marley and the Wailers walked off the stage singing Exodus, movement of the people. And the chant was, movement of the people. I mean, that's what was going down in that big arena. They walked off the stage doing Exodus, movement of the people. But in the background, you could hear the Isley Brothers coming on, and they were singing Fight the Power. So what the family, I'm a teacher, so I got to give you an assignment. Here's what I want you to, I want you to play Exodus. And then I want you to follow it up with Fight the Power by the Isley Brothers, to get the sense of the momentum that was going on that in that arena. That, now you talk about spirituality, that was a spiritual experience for me.
Right. I can imagine.
And then I saw him when he did his last concert in New York, when he opened up for the Commodores. Now that was powerful. That was powerful. Even with the Commodores, I had a lot of respect, because that was a number of years later. That was, I think, 82. I'm not sure when that was. But I know that this is because New York was his last concert that I believe that he did in New York. And so he opened up for the Commodores, and he was as dynamic, if not more dynamic, than he was up for Isley Brothers. It was just a spiritual experience. If you see Marley in concert, that brother took me to another level. I'll never forget what that brother contributed to us, and I have the utmost respect and honor for all that he represented. And that's an example of when he crosses over into philosophy and life. When you listen to Bob Marley's words, in fact, many of the Rasta words, Peter Tosh, all of them is just so powerful. But yeah, that's my Bob Marley experience. That's how I know that natural mystic is Bob Marley.
Right. That's a proper confirmation story. That's what I like. Yeah, put stamp on it, give you the experience story. That's real music right there. Commodores as well, and Bob Marley. Like, these combinations are blowing my mind.
Oh,
like I've never heard of them openers. You get me? So trust me, I would have loved to have been there.
I can testify. I was there, man.
Like, I'd like to hear Gil Scott Heron. I would love to hear him in concert. Like, that's
another. Yeah, man. I've seen him at least 3 or 4 times in concert, man. And I used to visit him when I lived in D.C. He was teaching at the University of Washington, D.C. He was teaching writing, and I used to visit his office in D.C. And it was funny because the brother, sometimes he was there, sometimes he wasn't. But he used to say, "Hey, man, sit down." And I would sit down, and he'd be doing something. And this brother, what you saw is exactly who he was. He was just an everyday brother that never separated himself from the community. But again, going back to 1978, this is when I was living in D.C. He was teaching at the University of Washington, D.C., and I used to go by his office and just sit. I forget how I heard that he was in D.C. I even forgot how I got his address, but I got it. And the first time I went, I spoke to his secretary, the sister that worked in his office, and she said, well, he's not here now. He could have been on tour or anything, been in class. But I used to pass him by and I used to visit. And there were times that he'd be in his office and, hey, man, how you doing? Sit down, have a seat, man. You want something to drink? And he was a good brother. Good brother.
And look how relevant his tunes are today. Like Winter in America. Ooh. You know what I'm saying? Like tunes are so, Living in a Bottle. Like he's got so many tracks that if you play today with this modern day backdrop, again, just like how we're talking about African spirituality forever being relevant and needed for our lives, the same way our music from our people, again, is ageless in that sense. Because as I said, when you listen to those tunes, you're getting the same experience, if not even more poignant today. You know what I'm saying? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you figured out a little. You can.
Yeah, everything's yeah. Tell me if you can hear me again. Am I coming?
We're all
Wait, suddenly my signal's going silly.
It's not. It's the signal's okay. It's just carbon signal's a bit.
Oh, is it mine or it's Carver's that's going a bit funny?
Yeah.
All right. He'll be back on in a sec, people. Listen, big up to everybody who's joining us. Don't forget to smash that like button. The brother's been dropping jewels for us. Come with all sorts of information. So like, share, and subscribe. You know the play. Support Black Eyes TV. Support Mr. Riggs. Here's our elder. He's back on.
Yeah. StreamYard.
Wait.
That when I run StreamYard, you know, like it'll fall off, but it'll give you a chance to come back on again.
Yeah. You just fall back to the back room.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, that's all good. Yeah, Riggsy, did you want to?
Yeah,
but I just want to add this one thing before we go on. Keep in mind what the name of Gil Scott-Heron's last album, his real last album, was called Spirit.
Right.
And really he had a piece that was called Message to the Messenger, where he was talking to the up-and-coming rap artists about how they are presenting themselves in arts and entertainment. And I remember there was a line in the song Message to the Messenger that he says, they don't know what to tell you or tell them, meaning the people, young Black people. They don't know what to tell them, but they know that you do. And what he was trying to infer to the rappers at the time that was coming up with a lot of different lyrics that we had never heard before, because, you know, you're going back to the very early 2000s. What he's attempting to tell them is the fact that they don't know what to do with us, but they know that we know what to do with us. And they're going to block you from being able to do that. And that's what this is about. As far as I'm concerned, we know how to take care of ourselves. And they know that. And that's why they will attempt to get in the way. And I always tell, here's another song by Bob Marley, Trenchtown Rock. My wife is from Jamaica, and I went to Jamaica for the first time in 1981. Bob Marley, in fact, had already joined the Ancestors by then. And I remember listening to Trenchtown Rock in its earliest stages. People said to me when I got there, you know, family of my wife and everybody say, where you want to go? Is there anything special you want to experience while you're here? I went to Ocho Rios and I went to Montego Bay, and went to various places in Kingston, and we just went around Dunn's River Falls. We just went everywhere. But I told him, there's only one place I really want to. Every place else that you take me, I'm willing to go. I have a good time, but there's one place I want to go. I want to go to Trenchtown. Nobody wanted to take me to Trenchtown. They said that's where the bad man lived. And I said, that's where the bad man lived. I said, what you talking about? That's where they said, well, there's a lot of crime, things happen in Trenchtown. I said, wait. I want to go to Trenchtown. Trenchtown rock. I want to go. And so they're called helpers. We might call them maids. I don't understand. But that's another story. The helper lived in Trenchtown. And she heard me talking, and she told me, she said, well, I live in Trenchtown. If you want to go, if they'll drive, I'll go. And so I said, oh, that's great. So I told him, I said, yeah, listen, she's going to take me to Trenchtown. That's going to be great. Okay. And so we set out, we're going to Trenchtown, and all of a sudden they stopped the car, and she gets out. She says, I'll be right back. And so I'm waiting there. And I'm saying, wow, she's taking a long time. She all right? You said, oh, no, she's fine. She just wanted to drop some things off in her house. And I said, but wait a minute. You told me she lived in Trenchtown. And they said, yeah, this is Trenchtown. So I step out the car, right? And I'm looking around. And the only difference between Trenchtown, or the part of Trenchtown that I was in Jamaica, and the project that I grew up in New York, was that the project that I grew up had paved cement streets. Whereas in Trenchtown, they were paths or dirt roads. But the houses looked the same. It was a 3-story house. I lived in a 6-story project apartment. Though the benches, the tree, in fact, quite frankly, Trenchtown was more beautiful than the project that I grew up in, to tell you the truth, with the trees and just everything in general. And then I saw, there was a Rasta, sitting down, and I went over, and started talking to him. And we had a great conversation. When the sister came back and she saw me sitting on the side talking to the Rasta, we was having a great conversation. Here's the point that I'm making. They try to make us afraid of ourselves. Like when folk are coming to New York, they say, don't go to Harlem. Harlem is where the bad man live. And eventually people start believing it. When they say, when I go to Jamaica, they say, don't go to Trenchtown. That's where the bad men. See, they keep us apart. So once we start talking to each other like Rasta and I were talking, we come to realize, hey, we got a lot in common here. There's a lot of stuff in common here. And they do the same thing for our brothers and sisters in Africa. Mm-hmm. They are taught, stay away from the African American. Stay away from the Jamaican American, or stay away from the Jamaican if they're going to Jamaica. Stay away from them. They're bad people. Because they know that if they keep us separate through fear, then we'll never be able to get ourselves together. But when Rasta see me from New York and I see Rasta, I see my brother from Ghana, my sister from Nigeria, we start talking to each other. We come to realize, wait. We have a lot in common here. We need to consolidate our forces and do something about what's going on. And so it becomes important that we understand this and be able to move forward.
Yeah. So, Brother Kaba, right? I wanted to ask, right? Because in what you just said, in understanding how to utilize spirituality or any of the African systems to overcome fear, in the fact of the Haitian Revolution, of how they overcome fear in the time of Walkman. I just wanted you to kind of elaborate how we can utilize that to able to overcome fear itself.
The concept that we're dealing with is spirituality is energy. Mm-hmm. Scientifically speaking, what animates all things brings them into existence. All of that is spirit. We have defined spirit as a religious concept, as an anthropomorphic man of European descent. But that is not spirit. Spirit isn't even a black man or a black woman. Spirit is an energy that pervades the universe and lives in darkness. And even when you look at stars, stars are codified, concretized black matter, dark matter. When that dark matter is pushed in to the point where there is no more space, it implodes. And when it implodes, that is the birth of a star. A star is crystallized black or dark matter in the cosmos. They say that there's nothing faster than the speed of light. That's not true. And as long as we deal with that science, we'll never be able to understand. It's not that that formula E equals MC squared doesn't have a place in physics. It's just not the speed of light. Because speed of light is not the fastest thing. The fastest thing is the speed of darkness, because wherever light travels and goes, darkness is already there. So darkness travels much faster than the speed of light. And so when you're dealing with this energy that's within you, your energy, our ancestors had that energy, that spirituality on the plantation. And that's very important to understand and to see. They had that spirit of emancipation. In Haiti, our brothers and sisters had just about enough. And they said, no more, no more. And there was no power. See, the other story that they don't tell is that not only did the French try to conquer Haiti, but so did Spain and the United States. And it wasn't until Teddy Roosevelt that they finally were somewhat successful by invading the island. Haiti had the most perfect democratic socialist state that ever existed. They had an economy that, had they been allowed to develop that economy, that would have been a powerful. I suggest that we all study the economy that came out of the revolution of Haiti. And look at what those brothers were going to do. Look at what the sisters were developing in Haiti. It was a perfect union that Thomas Jefferson refused to accept, because he was afraid that if black folk in America could see Haiti do what they did, then all of a sudden there would be very serious problems in America as it relates to enslaving African people. They still had the problem. One too much later that you had Nat Turner and you had John Brown and you had other insurrections. But keep in mind, there were insurrections in this part of the world for a very, very long time. They had insurrections in Jamaica. They had all sorts of revolutions throughout the Caribbean, Central and South America, Mexico. There was all sorts. But see, they don't tell those stories because they're afraid if you know the truth, then you will then begin to take in that power and to be able to do what you have to do. There comes a time when people say, I've had enough. It's not going on anymore. And when that happens, change occurs. But the people have to be ready. One or two people ain't going to work. We've seen that happen over the years. There's a lot of people had great ideas, tried to bring the people together, but the people just weren't ready to get together for a lot of different reasons. But when the people decide, and we've seen evidence of it in so many different ways. I'll tell you a story about when I visited Birmingham last summer in August, when they premiered Hidden Colors 5. You know the story, what happened with our brother Tariq Nasheed. Okay, here's the backstory to that experience. Hidden Colors 5 was premiering in New York, Long Island, New York, the day before I was scheduled to go to Birmingham for the screening of Hidden Colors 5 in Birmingham, UK. And so I was in the movie. My wife and I went to the premiere. I spoke a little bit, and then I was exiting the movie, talking to people and just having a great fellowship. And the brother Gardi Oasis, brother from Haiti, that had seen Hidden Colors, the 1804 Hidden History of the Haitian Revolution. He came out and he told me that Tariq wants you to have this. And what it was a copy. It was his copy of the DVD he played for the screening. And normally Tariq gives me 4 or 5 copies after it premieres. And so I said, wow, okay, for the first time, I'm getting the copy before, you know, a few weeks later down the road. And so I get in my car. Before I get in my car, I checked my phone for calls that may have come in while I was in the movie house because I shut my phone off. And I see that Tariq's assistant has contacted me twice, Ola. And I'm saying, wow, that's funny because Ola knew I was in the movie. Why would he call me? Why did he knew I was in the movie? So I called Ola back. He said, did you hear what happened? And I said, no, what happened? He said, UK has banned Tariq from coming to the premiere. He said, did Gardi give you the DVD? I said, you talking about the one for Hidden Color 5? He said, yeah. He said, well, that's what you got to bring to Birmingham because Tariq was going to bring the DVD himself, but now since Tariq could not go, the only DVD capable of doing that was the one that I had. So I said, okay. So I shut my phone off. I did not talk to nobody. I made no communications except for my family, children, and of course my wife. Made no communication because I wanted to get out of the country quietly because I knew that once I got into Birmingham, I didn't know what was going to happen because I knew that it was being billed that Tariq and I was going to be at the screening. So I knew that people who banned Tariq was aware that I was coming and they probably knew what plane I was on and the time I was going and everything else. Long story short, is I get into Birmingham, I get through customs. The brother Eric and his brother come pick me up. I'm carrying the DVD in my computer bag because I know that I can keep that in my hand the whole trip. I'm not putting anything that's going to go on the plane. I'm not going to put that DVD in there. So I'm carrying it with me. When I get there, I give him the DVD. And all of a sudden now there's a lot of things going on. He now tells me that they have canceled the event. And he said, what do you want to do? I said, well, I came here to do the event. So I'm answering your question now as it relates to the spirit. I'm giving you a different example of what it is that we have to do as a people, because I'm going to tell you what I feel. What I said to the audience is what I'm saying to you now. I was moving into a situation I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. I knew that there were forces that stopped Tariq at California when he was in Los Angeles trying to get to New York to catch the plane to Birmingham. The forces that stopped him, I knew were watching me. At that point in time, I had a choice. I didn't have to go. But there was a spirit, there was a fire in me that said, there's no way I am not going to Birmingham. There is no way, nothing is going to stop me. Now, on a more graduated level, I would imagine that was the spirit that was in Nat Turner. That was the spirit in Harriet Tubman. That was the spirit in Nani of Jamaica. That was the spirit in Boukman. That was the spirit in the revolutionary members of the Revolution of Haiti. That's the spirit on a graduated level by matter of degree. How tired are you of what you're experiencing? There's another story I want to tell you. I'm a teacher, so I got a lot of stories. There's a man. His friend had a dog. The dog was at his feet. The man was talking. And the dog was yelping and hollering in pain. And the guy was looking at the dog, yelping and hollering, and looking at his friend, and his friend kept on talking. And he kept on talking. He figured something was going on, so he kept talking. The dog was yelping and crying and hollering and in pain. And the man looked, and he noticed, he said, yo, your dog is laying on a plank of nails. And the guy said, yeah, I know. When it hurt enough, he'll get up. So my question to black folk is, when are we getting up off this plank of nails? We can yelp, holler, and cry, but when are we getting up off this plank of nails? That's the decision each and every one of us has to make. What are we going to contribute? What are we going to contribute financially? What are we going to contribute intellectually? What are we going to contribute as it relates to helping our people understand what it is to liberate and emancipate themselves? What are we willing to do? By what graduated mark are we going to be? Where does this go? If the people don't go, it can't happen. It got to be a movement of the people. That's what Exodus is saying. It's a movement of the people. And to cry, let my people go. And when I say that, I am not talking to them to let us go. I'm talking about us. Let us go. Let that inner being in you. That's what spirituality before religions is attempting to tell you. You have an enemy. Your greatest enemy is your negative forces in you that deny you access to being able to achieve your divine purpose on the planet, period, whatever that may be. And only you know what that is. And that's the key to all of this. Everything else outside of you is an obstacle. They're not your enemy. They're your obstacle to get over, because there's nothing you can't get over. But once you defeat this negative energy, frequency, vibration within you, all these things they've told us about ourselves and what we can't do and who we are and what we haven't done, once you understand what you've done and you begin to decide you're going to make a change, it starts with you. It starts with me. I am responsible. I know what got me in this situation. I know who enslaved me. I know who bamboozled me and lied to me and cheated me. I know who did that. But if I blame them for the conditions I find myself in, while I give them the power to get me out of this predicament, I also give them the power to keep me in it. But when I assume full responsibility, understanding all the other ramifications, but once I accept responsibility for this, nobody can get in my way. I am the deciding factor. In algebra, when you're doing mathematics and you're solving for the unknown, you have an equation and you have a variable. Only those variables can solve your problem. You can't take a variable from outside and solve your problem. The variable is what's going to solve your problem. And for me in my life, white folk are not a variable in my problem. So they have no right to speak as to what's going to help me. You help you. I know what I need to do. I know what we need to do for our people. We have to start thinking about it on that level. You know, the work that you're doing. My brother Riggs and Brother Richie, the work that you're doing, the community has to support you. That's what's going to make them, what makes your program better that helps them is them helping your program that helps you. And we have to get this into our heads. What's going to happen? And the question is, this is what I tell the children every day. We used to get up. This was our mantra every day when I was teaching in class, and even my own biological children. If it is to be, it's up to me. If it is to be, it's up to me. And when I say that, each of us saying that, it's up to where you are in your life as to what you want to do. And I believe that spirituality is the energy that animates and moves you, not only to want to, but to actually act in the interest of total emancipation and total liberation of who you are as a people. Hope I answered your question.
Yeah, 100%.
Killed it, as always.
But another one is I wanted to ask is what is that true entity of spirituality? That entity, not what it does, but what it actually is.
You don't know. That's the mystery and the beauty. It can't be seen, but it can be seen. For instance, you see, I raise my hand. Okay. You can see my hand.
Yeah.
That's the physical. But what made my hand move? You can't see that. That is the animating energy within me that made it move. You can't see it, but you know it exists because you can see my hand move. So the seen is my physical body, but the invisible or the spiritual is the energy that made my hand move. And that's the story that our ancestors told about the creator coming out of the original Trinity in the Shabaka stone. That you had the Nun, which was the matter. You had Ptah, which was the hill that rose up out of the water, which represented the conversion of potential energy at rest, into kinetic energy in motion. And then up out of this combination of matter and energy, you had creative utterance that they call the Atum, that sat atop Ptah and called all things into being. That's where you get the concept of Adam from. Adam was given the responsibility by the creator to name all of God's creations. Well, that's what the atom does. The atom is the definition, the ATOM, that came from us, the ATUM, atom. The atom is exactly that. The atom in science is what creates all of the molecules and all of the other things that exist. In other words, you call things into being, that's when they exist. That's why naming is so important in the African tradition. So that as you're dealing with these concepts going back and forth, spirit cannot be seen. And that is why in many African traditions, you don't really have a name for God. You have representatives of God that in Kemet, they call them Neteru, or the essences of the emanations of the creator. But you have Heru, and you have Asar, Aset, Nebetet, Sekhmet. You have different representations of the creator taking on nature's elements, but you don't really have a name for the unseen. You don't really have a name. We call it Amen, but even Amen doesn't represent God per se. Amen represents the hidden fertile waters that brings all things into existence. See, once we begin to look at it from an African perspective, it's very straightforward. And it's really a beautiful story. I really enjoy the story. And it's clear the way our ancestors used nature to explain some of the most complex issues that was around them, like what is spirit? Spirit cannot be seen. However, Amenet, who is Amen, the hidden, Amenet, the feminine, whenever you have the word ending in a T, it represents the feminine aspect. Amenet was the revealed. So when I showed you my hand going up, that's Amenet. But I couldn't show you the energy that made my arm rise. My arm down is in potential energy at rest. When I lift my arm up, I converted the energy from energy at rest to energy in motion or kinetic energy. That is the creative force. And so that is spirituality, animation, energy, the light, heat, and sound energy that comes from the sun. Spirit is like the driver, and the sun's rays are the car. Spirit drives the light, heat, and sound energy down to earth, which creates life. That's science, and that's in the Aten text. And our ancestors were dealing with these higher forms of thinking. And not just that, family. Our ancestors actually had mastered many forms of solar power. Things that we're trying to do now, they already did. In fact, there are some, like for instance, in King Tut's tomb, there is evidence that they may have been on galactic power, which is the third form. See, you have 4 different levels. A civilization is only as great as the source of its energy. Right now, with everything going on, everybody's into Earth's energy. That's number 1. That's the lowest form of energy. When you draw from the Earth, the oil, the water, you know, the gas, you know, all of that is Earth. That's number 1. At some point in time, you begin to attract solar power, which is another part of spirituality before religions, where I'm describing that solar power is the wealth of the future. In fact, solar power is so abundant, the energy system is so powerful that there's no AIRE at the end of your name that will describe how rich you'll be. There's no millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire. There's no deal. You cannot fathom how wealthy you would be if you tapped into solar power. And so the next level is solar power. The third level is galactic power. Just imagine what you're doing right now when you fill up your car with gasoline, okay? You fill up your car with gasoline and you just drive. If you had a solar cell in your car and you had a solar power base, you could drive for free because the sun doesn't charge you money. You would just be able to derive your energy from the sun. All of us could. The third level is galactic power. Now, suppose that we could use our sun as a satellite so that every human being on the earth had his or her own star. Do you know how much energy that would be? If we could derive this power from just one sun, imagine if we could derive power from our own personal sun. The final one is cosmic energy, which means that we could tap into galaxies of energy. A civilization is only advanced as its source of power and energy. And right now we're at the lowest rung. At one time, our ancestors were deriving solar power. You can see it in the pyramids. You can see it in all of the writings, that they understood the power and majesty of the sun. And they had derived some very powerful ways. But when the Greeks didn't get it, Romans never got it. And now we tried to help them out in the Renaissance. Africans going into Europe, they still couldn't get it. And that's what Western civilization is based on. And now we're living in a world where not only is it misinformation, it's misinformation. Because the Romans never got it. They were barbarians and savages. They never got it. And if you look at how they conduct themselves now, you can see they don't know what they're doing. All the greatest scientists in the world, Cambridge, Columbia University, Yale University, Oxford, Salamanca. You can go all around the world. Nobody know how to deal with this virus. They can't. Listen, you can't find rubbing alcohol in New York. No stores have alcohol. You can go to the corner and buy a fifth of gin. You have no problem buying liquor, but you can't find alcohol. Does that tell you something about where we are in this civilization? When are we going to figure out we better get ourselves together, because these folk don't know what they're doing. They're not that intelligent. I've never thought of them as being that intelligent. I've been around them enough to know they're not at all intelligent, and they're emotionally unstable. I'm not speaking in absolutes, but enough of them have proven to me they are not stable. When are we going to understand this, family? When are we going to decide once and for all? A change has got to come. And if it is to be, it's up to me. It's up to you to decide once and for all you want something better for yourself and your family, for your community, for your children, and for the children who are yet to be born. Somewhere we have to make a decision. This is my thing. This is what I do. I'm in education. Where are you? You could be anywhere. Whatever you do. You might drive a bus. Be the best bus driver. You might be a nurse. You might be a doctor. You might have a whole bunch of money, might have none at all. But what are you going to do? You've been given these cards called life. How are you going to play your cards? You have a divine mission. That's why you're here. Can you find it? Will you find it? Something we got to think about. When are we going to get up off this plank of nails? I hear us hollering. I hear us yelping. But when are we getting up off this plank of nails?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Everything's freezing up on my end. All right, that's cool. Yeah, much appreciated. Listen, we're coming to the hour and a half point. You've been going in beautifully. Before we start to wind down, I just want to deal with the body of work that you've done, because again, I feel like it's been a procession to this point, and people might not know about other works that you've done. So just speak to the certain books that you've done leading up to this book, and obviously tell the people where they can find them, and any other significant work that goes along, because I know me and you've talked about digital work and certain DVDs that you've participated in.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for the opportunity, brother. Yes. Well, my first book, again, following African tradition, it is a tradition to have a ceremony that is called a libation, where you pay homage to the ancestors. And I have always been a curriculum writer. I write for the classroom. I write to teach the children and to the community. So that's how my writing has always been. And I was in a presentation in Los Angeles where there was a sister that was a prolific writer. And she said to me, "You need to write a book." She said, "Do you have a book?" And I said, "No, I don't write I don't write books." She said, "Well, you need to write a book." I said, "Well, I'm a curriculum writer." And she said, "No, I understand that." But she said, "You have an entire audience that you're missing, because there are some that enjoy videos and they enjoy audios, but you also have an audience out there that enjoys reading books. That's how they get their information." She said, "You need to write a book." I said, "Well, I wouldn't even know how to even start writing a book because I write curriculum." She said, "Look, what you've just said alone, if you just transcribe what you just said, you could write, that could be a book." So the sister made me start thinking about that. And then I was encouraged again one time. I was doing a presentation that same summer. It was in the summertime. That same summer, someone else said, "Man, you need to write a book." And then I thought about it. And I said, wait a minute, now there's two people. There was a sister and a brother that have encouraged me to write a book. And I said, but I don't write books. I write curriculum. Now, here's the difference between a curriculum writer and a book writer. You could have a situation where somebody is like writing a book about foods around the world. And the book talks about the different foods. Now you have somebody else that writes a book of recipes on how to cook those foods. I'm like the person, curriculum writing is like the person that writes the book on recipes, on how to cook. I write how to teach. And I write lessons in math and science and other things on how to teach mathematics or how to teach a class, because I'm a classroom teacher. So I decided that I was going to start I'm going to start to write a book. But in the African tradition, I had to do a libation. So I did a libation to the architect of America's African studies programs. We're all into Black studies, we're into culture, but we don't know the history, really. We think of the 60s as that explosion of Black studies departments, but we don't know that William Leo Hansberry had developed an African studies program in 1922 at Howard University. And he directly or indirectly has impacted everybody that has come out of the Black Studies Department one way or another. And I wrote 2 different theses on him. One, his life and times, and the other was how he developed the Black Studies program at Howard. And I combined them together to write my first book, which was an intellectual libation honoring the life and times and works of Professor William Leo Hansberry. Spirituality Before Religions really is my first book, so to speak. My first book actually is William Leo Hansberry, but that was a libation. That was a book that explored this brother, paying homage to him, thanking him for all that he had done, because he really, although I never knew him, he really was part of my my thought process. And so I wrote William Leo Hansberry, and then again, about 5-6 years ago, I started writing Spirituality Before Religions. However, I have joined a phenomenal technological genius by the name of Brother Philippe Matthews, who we have structured an online class. It's called the Kemetic Wisdom School, where we do classes. I'm doing classes. I've done classes on the Shabaka Stone. I've done classes on the Dogon. I've done classes on West Africa. I did a class on the Africans in Greece, where I did research on the origins of the Olympics. And what I found out was the Olu, the word Olu of Olympics. You would say, wow, that probably come from Egypt. No, that come from Nigeria. You see, we don't realize all of Africa was great. We don't know, because of what we've been exposed to, that there was a lively international trade amongst African peoples with the world thousands of years. We don't see that Africans that were in West Africa were impacting Africans in Kemet, were impacting people in Greece. You know, we don't study the fact that actually, when you look at the boot of Italy, if you go to the western coast of that boot, was where the original people came out of. The land was called Etruria, E-T-R-U-R-I-A. Don't believe a word I say. Research this. Or go to the Kemetic Wisdom School and take the class, because I take you through these. And these are Black folk that they're called Etruscans. They lived in Etruria. The islands of Sardinia was Black people. All in the Mediterranean area, it was for thousands of years, all Cushites, all Black people. Simple. That's science. In Turkey, Black people. Greece, Black people. Long before there were any Indo-Europeans that came down out of the ice mountains, long before them, that all that land, the Mediterranean basin, was established. Even in Spain, I know we get really romantic about Africans going into Spain in 710 AD, but we can track Africans in Spain going back 3,000-4,000 years before the Common Era. There are Africans in Spain and Portugal, in Italy, in France. There's Black people all in the Mediterranean basin. Just check it out. It's there. The information is there. You just got to look for it, because they're not going to let you notice. If I were them, I wouldn't let you notice either. That's why I look for it, because I know they're doing what they're supposed to do. The question is, are we doing what we're supposed to do?
No, that's the key element. And it's funny that you're saying Olu, because my African name is Oluwole.
Okay.
Which is God has entered this house. That's the meaning of it.
Okay.
And that's Nigerian, because the side of my family is Nigerian Yoruba speakers.
Okay, so that's where it comes.
Say what you was going to say, Elder.
No, I was just going to continue responding to your question. I was just giving you examples of the Kemetic Wisdom School. You go to Shock Metaphysics, SHOCK Metaphysics, METAPHYSICS, and if you put the word shock in the slot, you get half price. It's $14.97 a month. And I'm not the only person that will be teaching classes. There's a number of great scholars that that teach classes on the Kemetic Wisdom School. And so that's what we do. Now, when I was first writing Spirituality Before Religions, I decided that I wanted to offer the community an introduction to my work. So about a couple of years ago, I created a website where I offer a free 6-day e-course on Spirituality Before Religions, because I had a feeling that the book was going to have an impact on the community in a way that they had never been impacted that way before. So I wanted to prepare the community for the book. I thought it was going to come out much sooner, but in reality, there was a lot more work I had to do on the book that really made it what I believe it became. Because it's selling well in UK. It's selling well in UK, in Canada, and in Germany. It's Italy, Spain, because folk are waking up. They're beginning to see things. And I think this pandemic is helping. And so if you go to my website, kabakamene.com, www.kabakamene.com, you can download the free e-course and my 44-page study guide. Now, my study guide, Dr. Clark often told us, you may not get to your destination in your life, but if you leave the proper roadmap, others will be able to follow. My study guide came out of Hidden Colors 1. A lot of folk, particularly young people, were coming to me and say, yo, man, I didn't know it was going to roll like this, man. I thought Hidden Colors was, you put it on world, Tariq put it on World Star Hip Hop. I thought it was going to be, Nicki Minaj, Drake. I thought it was going to be about rap. I didn't know it was going to be about culture and history, but I ain't never heard nothing like this before. Tell me a book I can get. And I began to realize that for some people who have been introduced to this information, there was nothing surprising about what they saw. They enjoyed it. They liked seeing it. It was presented well, but they knew this information. But for other people that had never known this, that walked into this, didn't realize what they were going to experience, this was overwhelming. And I did not want to just offer a book. Okay, read John G. Jackson, read Chancellor Williams, read John Henry Clark. So what I did is I shut down for 2 weeks. This was in April of 2011. I shut down for 2 weeks, and by May 12th, I came out right around this time in 2011, 9 years ago. That's interesting. I shut down for 2 weeks, and I brought all of my collected work together, and I put it in outline form. And I'm going to stick a pin there for a minute, because I'm going to tell you a story about Dr. Clark. One time I told Dr. Clark, I was teaching at the time, and I said to him, Dr. Clark, I could never pay you back for all you've done for me. He said, you're right. You ain't got that much money. But you can pay me back by doing for others what I've done for you. And he said, the greatest thing that I've ever given you, I've given you for free. I've not asked you for the greatest gift. There were other things that cost, buying his books or whatever may have happened. But the greatest gift he gave me free. And I thought about that. Now I'm going to return back to my story. The study guide is the greatest gift I could give to my community because it's my roadmap. It is where I'm headed. And so for anyone out there, for the younger generations that are moving up, that are interested in this area, for those yet even born, this 44-page study guide that outlines my entire approach towards teaching and learning the true history of the original human beings on the planet. That is my study guide. And I give it to our community free because of my love, respect, and honor. There are things in life that must be free. I understand that. There are things that must be paid for too. But there are things that are free. And some of our greatest gifts have come for free. And the greatest gift that I could ever give the community is what you're giving me now. And that is your time. Time is the most precious thing that you have. Time is the one thing you can never get back, you can't buy back, and you can't sell forward. Time is what you exist in for that moment. And it's precious. And so that's why I appreciate all of you taking this time out of your schedule to be here with me, as I have taken this time to be here with you. And I thank Brother Richie and to my and to all those involved with making this happen. I just thank you for this opportunity. And so what becomes important is to go to my website, kabakamene.com, and to download that. And you can get my books on Amazon. That's the best way to do it. Normally, you could get it, you could order it. I would mail it to you, but Amazon is the best way to do it because the mail is going through a lot of different changes right now. And if you go to Amazon, you can order the book, either William Leo Hansberry or Spirituality Before Religions. I'm pretty sure that you will be, from the reviews that I'm getting back and from responses I'm getting back from people, and even looking at the live comments here, there are those of you wherever this show is going who have the book, and you have expressed it. And I'm confident that my intentions, what I set out to do in the book, have been met by so many people's responses to me as to the impact that it's had on them and what they're looking at. And also, it has come at a most appropriate time. Not only because we all have a little bit more time to be able to sit and read, but also I think there are some things in that book that I'm expressing that will respond to and assist us moving forward this time in our history. I never knew. I published it July 12th. I published it in paperback. That was on the Kindle. Can't buy Kindle no more. The paperback is what you buy. And that was published at the end of July, I think July 29th. There was no way I knew this pandemic was coming. Yet there's a lot of parallels in Spirituality Before Religion between this pandemic, nature, and spirituality. It's very interesting how all of this is connected. And it becomes so important, family, that we understand there is a natural mystic in the air. And if you listen carefully, you will hear. And so I invite you to download my free e-course and study guide and check out the book, Spirituality Before Religions. And if you're interested in Black studies and the origins of a brother that put everything that he had on the line to make sure that we learned our history and culture, William Leo Hansberry is the man that you want to study and understand what he did, what he actually did back in the 20s. When I wake up in the morning, family, I do not complain. I am blessed. I'm telling you, considering what our ancestors went through, I have no right to complain. I can understand what we're going through. But my goodness, I pray that the spirit of Harriet Tubman, every day I pray that her spirit enters and revitalizes, not so much enter me, but I can revitalize her spirit, her tenacity. My goodness, if she could do what she did. I mean, she walked from the south to the north. We complain because we trying to Uber. We're trying to go someplace by bus, fly, take the train, she walked from the south to the north. And then I have a DVD on my site on the Underground Railroad. What would Harriet Tubman do? My son and I did 2 documentaries, one on Malcolm X and one on Harriet Tubman. And the one on Harriet Tubman, I went up to her house where she lived up in Auburn, New York. Okay. I live in northern New York City. It took me close to 7 hours to get to her house in Auburn. I'm already in New York, going up to her house in New York State. It took me 7 hours by car to get to her house. So even after she got from the South to New York, just to get from where she was in New York to her house was a 7-hour car drive. So imagine how long it took for her to navigate that by walking or however other means of transportation they might have. That tells me she wanted to be free. What are we willing to do to be free? I do not complain. And if I even dream about complaining, I wake up and apologize. Our ancestors led the way and did things that we would never have to do again. And what we're doing is so that our children, our descendants, will not have to go through what we're going through today. And that's just how we have to do this, family. If it is to be, it's up to me. What are we doing? What are each and every one of us doing? And I stand online first to ask myself, before I look out at anyone else, I look at myself and say, what do I need to do? Also, I started a webinar series on spirituality before religions. And so you can go to the site sbrwebinar1.com. And we did that a week ago. So we've started a webinar series to go deeper into the book, and we have bonus offers with more materials that could not be put in the book or in the webinar. Because I'm really covering this from every base possible. First is the e-course, then came the book, then came the webinar, then came the bonus offers of the webinar. And when you put, and then we have a question and answer period for those that attend the webinars. We have a question and answer period that lasted 3 hours last Sunday because folk had a lot of questions. And so when you look at these different aspects of this, we're thoroughly looking at spirituality before religions, and then giving the community a chance to get their questions and their feedback and their ideas as it relates to what they've experienced through all of the different mediums.
Rich, you having a problem?
Yeah, it's just pausing now. So I'm here. I can hear everyone fine. All right. Well, again, we've covered most of the bases. The elders told you where to find a body of work. Riggsy, is there any announcements we got to do before we sign off and conclude today's show?
Yeah, before we even sign out. Elder Kaba, I was going to ask.
Can you hear me, Riggs?
Yeah, I can hear you. Kaba, I want to ask if you got any form of PayPal or Cash App that anybody would like, where they can able to donate to.
I'm sorry, brother. You were coming in and out.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. I said, do you have a Cash App or a PayPal where people can donate to your works?
Yes, you could. Let me tell you two things before I respond to that question.
Yeah.
I have always wanted to give something to get something.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate donations. I appreciate love collections. But if you wanted to support my work, I'd like you to go to my website, Kaba Kamene, because I've got a lot of DVDs.
Mm-hmm.
And when I stream them, like if 99 cents, $1.99, $2.99 if it's a three-part series. I have books. I have a lot of things up there where it's a $0+ or a $1+, which means that for those, and I realize that there are those of us, particularly nowadays, that may not have the financial support that they need to be able to be purchasing a great deal of material, but I still believe that there's material that should go to the community. So it's 0+, and you are welcome to download it for free. But if by chance you have a little something extra when you talk about donations, if you want to give a little something more than just getting it for free, then you can put whatever you want. Some people put $2, $3, $4, whatever you'd like. There's also a $1+, which means that, okay, I'm asking for $1, but if you have more, then that's cool. Okay? So that I want to do business. And by that, I mean, I respect and honor donations. Coming from your heart, I love you, respect you, and honor you for your support of my work. And I know that. But I would like you to get something back from me for whatever you may give me. And that is what allows you and me to be able to build the types of businesses, because you know what we have to do with this work that you're doing, Brother Richie and Brother Riggs? There are people in the media world that get paid big money for what they do. We have to start businesses such as this with intellectual property, which means the growth of the mind. Our community, in getting this information here in the United States, they pay for cable. They pay for extra media. And so there should be some form of payment for the work that intellectual property as culture has to do. We have to start a business in that also, so that the community could best support me by going to my website and purchasing items that I have up, from DVDs, whether they're physical copies or whether they're streaming. I made it possible, again, for those that wouldn't be able to maybe spend $20 or $25 on a DVD. They can stream it for $1.99 or $2.99. This media, and Brother Rich, you and I have spoken about this before, the many ways in which we can monetize this process, because the money that I make goes into my work. It goes into the furtherance of buying a book or buying something that I need that pushes my work forward. Maybe I need something for my computer, whatever it is. The finances that I get allow me to do this. And the same is true for you and Brother Riggs, the work that you're doing. Now, with that in mind, I also see the other option, which is PayPal and Cashapp. And my Cashapp address is $, Kaba Kamene, and the number 7. Kaba Kamene, and the number 7. That's my Cashapp. My PayPal is Kamene777 at AOL.com. Kamene 777 at AOL.com. Whatever support you give me, may I tell you, I appreciate the time you've spent with me just today. This is precious. And to my brother Richie and to my brother Riggs, I thank you so much for offering me this platform to talk to our beloved community. And I thank you for this opportunity to be able to do this. And I wish you only the very best in all that you're trying to do for our people, because I know that your heart is in making it better for our people. And we all have to support the work that you're doing. That's why when you contacted me, because I know I've been on your program a few times before, but when you contacted me recently, you know, I just so appreciate what you do and respect the work that you do. And I honor the fact that so many people have come to this session, that I just support you. And whatever financial support you may offer my way, it goes to the betterment of our people and our community and all the things that we need to do for the people. And I know that it's going to be the same for you also. So I pray that the community supports you and understands during this time more than ever we value the work that you're doing and the work that all of our scholars are doing to move us forward, following the traditions of all of our ancestors who risked everything so that we could be free. For that, I will always be dedicated. And I will attempt never to let them down. Because, like I say, I'm blessed, or blissed if you want to use it like that. Considering no matter what may have come my way in my life compared to what our ancestors went through, they were some powerful people. And you talk about spirit, I pray that their spirit inspires us, inspirits us. Those were some powerful people. Some of them maybe could not read, could not write, but they certainly were one with the creative force and knew how to make things happen. And I pray that that type of cultural common sense emboldens us to do what we have to do, whether it be here on this side of the pond, or in UK, that side of the pond, or in Europe, or in Central or South America, in the Caribbean, the motherland herself. We need to get busy. And we need to understand this person that we thought was all great was really the Wizard of Oz, who was a very small man that projected a very big image of himself with a big booming voice. But when that dog Toto pulled back the curtain, what everybody saw was we all saw a mixed up little man that didn't even know how to free himself. As Bookman told the truth, cast aside your white God, embrace your African spirituality. You are free.
Definitely. Okay, so tomorrow we are going to have a group of young people called Total Exposure. It's a platform for music artists to perform. They talk about music, they talk about entertainment, they talk about fashion and all kinds of stuff. This will be tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And then on Friday, we yet again for the second series for the Manhood Academy, the Rites of Passage. We talk about the parents, we talk about the family, we talk about how we can put our youth through the Rites of Passage, as you can go to the website and register your children for the Saturday sessions, which is online. But we're going to be having a special guest, and we're going to be having more of the co-workers within the Manhood Academy. And then on Sunday, we have what we call the International Sister Circle, where the sisters do their thing. And this time they're going to be doing womb healing with a lot of women. So there's going to be 6 of them, and they're going to be demonstrating what they need to do to healing themselves. So that will be on Sunday. And then Monday will be a special person coming through. Not saying who, but watch out and log in on Monday. But yes, so tomorrow is 9 o'clock. Friday is 8 o'clock. Oh, there might be something special on Saturday, but the International Women's Circle will be at 5 p.m. So watch out for that and make sure you log in. So yes, Rich.
Yeah, listen, again, people, go to the Instagram, Mr. Terry Riggs or Black Ice TV 7 to see flyers. Go and look at the Black Ice TV page on Facebook to also see digital flyers of shows that are up and coming, so you can confirm those times. As always, big up to the chat room, our usuals, Melanae Goddess, Asiatic. Special shout out to Craig Samuels. We will be booking you on the show, brother. So look out for my contact with you. But big up for tuning in. Big up to everybody who donated today and supported the channel in that way. Special thank you to you for doing that. Again, Brother Kaba, love you. Yeah, I mean, love the information. Love talking with you. So really appreciate you coming in again and chatting with us. I definitely want to bring you back again at some time to do this all over again. But again, keep it black. It's all black everything. Recharge those batteries. Understand your environment. And understand it starts with improvement of self. You understand? You can't help the wider community if you don't work on yourself and your family first. So take note, take stock. Talk to me, brother.
Please, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I want to ask you a question. Can you see my comments?
Yeah.
Because I put down the 3 different sites that you could possibly go to.
Oh. What on the YouTube? Put it on the YouTube? Hold
on. I'm putting them over. It says private chat.
In the private chat. Hold on. Copy. Hold on 1 minute. Family, watch. Hold on. So I will put that in the comment section, and I will put that in the direction in the description box.
Okay, because I'm about to send. Okay, I'm sending the different ways. Okay, I sent 4. I put it in the private chat, but can I? If I were to move over to live comments, would it also go over there?
I'm doing it now.
Yeah, we're copying and pasting. Yeah, we're doing it, and these will be in the description of the video. So anybody who tunes in after the fact, you'll be able to get details of everything Kaba's doing, the places where to get stuff. Cashapp, PayPal, all those details will be there in the description of the video.
Okay. Fantastic. Family, thank you so much. I look forward to the next time, man. Thank you for this opportunity.
So don't forget, 5 p.m. Sunday for the women. So stay black, believe in black, move black. As Kaba said, it comes from black matter.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah. Whoops. It stopped.